Good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting to order for the Clay County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, February 11th. Our first item will be the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do you have any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? I see none in the audience. Anything online?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of bills and vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills and vouchers.
Thank you. Do you have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from January 28th.
Move for approval of the minutes of January 28th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll get into our 8:35 item, and we have our annual update from Soil and Water Conservation District. Good morning, Kevin.
Thanks for inviting us. It's always fun to come and let you guys know what we did last year and hopefully what our 2025 program entails.
Kevin, slide that mic a little closer to you. You kind of got a softer voice.
Okay, better?
Thank you, yes.
Welcome. Last year at this time, I brought in our two newest employees. We had been hiring for quite some time last year, brought them in and introduced you to them. We're in the hiring mode again. One of those employees has since resigned and moved on. So we're in the hiring process again. So anyway, it's something that seems like it's gotten to be more common than what we like. But anyway, I'm just gonna go through our program that we did last year. Our 2020 tree program is what most people kind of recognize us with. Last year, we had another good year. We sold just about 16,000 trees and shrubs, and we planted for 25 landowners, different landowners, and had over 150 hand plant jobs. We installed 11.4 miles of that matting, almost from our office to Cragness. For 2024-25, we have thus far, we have 9,030 trees ordered, 20 machine planting jobs, and 5.6 miles of matting to apply. And a couple years ago, we decided that a good option for our landowners that don't have tillage equipment to work up their ground prior to planting, we bought a rototiller. And I'm just gonna have Tony give a little brief demo here on what that can do in our sod. A lot of our landowners are not farmers, so heavy equipment to break up that sod is something that they don't have the ability to do. And that's the way we want that ground worked up, just like a garden if we can. This machine does a great job. We would probably go over that site a couple times just to really blacken it up and get the sod chunks out of there. On the right side there, you can see where we had done the rototill job previously. It worked up a black strip. We planted the trees, we put that black fabric down, which is a weed barrier, and left the grass in between. And the grass in between there acts as a erosion control. And you can see in the background there was near a little lake in the county. We don't have a whole lot of lakes, but preventing that soil from washing into the lake is something that keeping the grass strips in there is a great option to have available to landowners.
So, good morning. I don't do this very often, so.
Want to turn your mic on?
Hello.
There you go.
Oh, see, I didn't even know how to do this. I'm Tony for most of you. I think I've met most of you. And I'm a technician there at the Soil and Water Conservation District office. Kevin asked me to come today and talk a little bit about some of the conservation programs that we work on there. A couple of the highlighted ones that we do, we participate in the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, which is a partnership between state and federal organizations. And that's sort of a good deal for the landowners and the producers in the county to be able to take advantage of some of these opportunities. In 2024-25, we completed one contract for approximately 207 acres up in the Goose Prairie Township area. We continue to market and promote this program. For 2025, we have probably 6 landowners that are interested. One of the challenges that we have with this program right now, because it is a federal state program, clearly we're going through some flux with some of the federal stuff right now, and so there's currently no farm bill, and we're working through some things at the beginning of the fiscal year or the calendar year to be able to sort of get that program back on track so we can start implementing that program. Like I said, we do have some landowners that are interested, and they're on a waiting list right now to be able to kind of go through that process. In addition, we also have what the state calls their walk-in access program, which is a program that pays landowners for allowing recreational hunters out on their land for a small fee to be able to access that property. We have approximately 9 contracts for almost 2,000 acres in Clay County, 1,913 acres. In 2025, we have 5 of those contracts that are expiring for about 1,200, almost 1,300 acres. Generally speaking, all of those landowners will re-enroll those acres, and then we usually get 1 or 2 contracts per year that will increase the amount of recreational opportunities out there. We are anticipating an application period this spring. There's kind of an annual application period in March. Again, that is subsidized by the federal government through the Farm Bill. So, there's a lot that's potentially in flux there. So we're waiting to kind of see what happens here in the next couple of months with that. So.
We need to be retrained way too often, Jackie, sorry. In 2012, we took over the County Ag Inspector program that was transferred to us. The state of Minnesota has a noxious weed law that basically has a list of controlled noxious weeds. There's 16 of them in the county, or actually in the state, actually. And in 2012, we met with the county and township officials to see if there's some additional weeds to add to the list. The township folks thought the musk thistle and bull thistle should be added to the list, as well as kochia. So those are in addition to the state's list of the 16 different species that are basically required to be controlled. We meet with the county officials at the county township officers meeting, and we also have a training session for them each year, usually in March, that we'll be providing a yearly training session for them. The program also asks us to proctor non-commercial and commercial applicator licenses for individuals. We did 58 projects with individuals last year getting licensed. And we also did 291 miles of county road right-of-way spraying. This year, our program looks very similar to what we did in the past. We'll be meeting with Justin to go over the miles that they want to focus on this year for the tree spraying. And then also we do already have done 6 tests for the applicator licenses already. The county feedlot officer program, the county transferred that program to us in 2007. We continue to meet with landowners and make sure they're in compliance with MPCA feedlot laws. At present, there are 77 registered feedlots in the county. When we took over, there was 119, so you can see how many have gone by the wayside. We are required to do compliance checks on 7% of those, which equals 6 different farms every year. So Gabe is our county feedlot officer. He meets with those individuals every year to go through and get that 7% in compliance. 2025 is a re-registration year, so every 4 years, landowners that have feedlots are required to re-register with the state, and basically all registered feedlot owners will be getting a letter requesting them to update their number of animal units that they have on their farm. The buffer law compliance, we're 99% in compliance. There is 1 or 2 sites out there that we're still waiting for DNR determination. We are in charge of monitoring those buffers, one third of the county every year. So this past year, we did the southern third. We have another round coming up this year, and we will be doing the northern third of the county, so we will be getting into more of the Wild Rice Watershed District area. And state legislatures there's potentially cuts we're hearing coming from the riparian aid dollars that we typically have worked with the county on some projects. Also, I guess we have concerns with our buffer funds. Are they going to be included in that reduction? So I guess our legislative session, we're waiting to see where that goes this year.
In addition to those compliance programs, we also facilitate the aquatic invasive species grant that comes to us through the Minnesota DNR, flowed through the county. We get a small amount, right around $16,000 a year. Most of that money we spend on outreach and education. We try to put up some billboards heading east out of town towards the lakes regions to just keep people aware of the threat of aquatic invasive species, both on Interstate 94 and on Highway 10. In addition, we spend a lot of our time, aquatic invasive species time, doing some partnership programs with both River Keepers and FM Walleyes, which is a fishing organization. We participate in the water festival every year, and we usually have staff members go out there and instruct some of those kids on a lot of the clean water stuff and aquatic invasive species and just general sort of clean water stuff out there. We also participate in the Little Fisherman's Derby with the FM Walleyes. And depending on the sort of the circumstances, we'll do probably 30 to 40 children and their parents every year. That budget is also in flux a little bit from the state's perspective too, and so I've been getting a lot of emails here lately about supporting some efforts to maintain the current budget as it is right now, but the governor, I guess, is talking about reducing that budget by about 50%, so we'll see where that takes us in the coming months. In addition to that, probably my primary position over at the SWCD is Wetland Conservation Act and wetland compliance. There's been some updates with the rule that came out in the legislative session as of August 1st that's going to try and pair state laws a little bit closer to what federal swamp buster programs are, which in theory is going to make it a little bit easier to implement. They're still going through the rulemaking process and the procedures there, so we're not quite sure what that means yet. Hopefully we'll get some additional guidance here in the near future. This year was a heavier year for us in terms of Wetland Conservation Act sort of challenges and concerns out there. We had about 81 distinct projects out there with a little over 300 landowner contacts, which is a huge increase for us. 2025, we'll be doing more of the same. I get a lot of support from planning and zoning, from Mark Sloan and GIS and those guys to be able to do what we're doing out there, but it can be a challenging sort of program, as you can probably imagine. So.
Our no-till drill rental program, 32 years ago, I look at 1993, it does not seem like that's 32 years ago, but Commissioner Krabenhoff can attest to it. That was when we first bought our first John Deere no-till drill. Since that time, it has been very popular and continues to be popular. So in 2024, we had 1,750 acres that we planted to rent to 35 different landowners. So Gabe has been in charge of that one too since Craig had retired a couple years ago. It seems like it's popular every year. It seems like about the same number of landowners and around that same number of acres. So that's proven to be a good little money maker, but also a good option for landowners that want to plant into standing residue, but also to try their own attempts at no-till. It's something those drills are not cheap. And it's only 15 feet wide, but they're $100,000 a dump thing. So it's kind of crazy. We see much more of the same. So like I say, 32 years has gone by, and it's as popular as it ever has been. We also have an Ag BMP low-interest loan program. That also continues to be relatively popular. In 1996, the program was developed, and we have last year we had 3% loans available to landowners for such things as septic system upgrades, conservation equipment. We made our first loan out for a drone for an individual that plans on planting his cover crops from that. So kind of an interesting concept. Anything that reduces pollution can be put towards this low-interest loan program. So it's got to be kind of popular again with the interest rates being at 3%. In recent years, some of the equipment dealers' rates had been up to, well, I think right now they're probably in a 7 to 8% range. They had been down to 0, so we didn't have a lot of loans being taken from us, primarily for some conventional septic systems. But since the interest rates at the dealers have gone up, it's become more popular. We see 4 applications presently waiting for some more information from them, waiting for them to be processed. And once again, I think as time goes on, the septic system interest continues to be out there, and maybe take a look at pursuing those interests with the county to be serving as a lender. I know it's something that maybe isn't popular with every commissioner or every entity, but if there's some way that we could put that on property taxes. There's about 30 plus counties in the state that do that, and we have some of our landowners that have septic system issues that don't qualify for a low interest loan. Either that the banks don't want to make the loan with them, so those septic systems go not repaired, and maybe are still leaching into the drainage ditches and stuff like that. So it's stuff that I think we would like to revisit again. Our pollinator habitat program, we continue to monitor our crestwood site that we have with the county. We do some spot spraying every year for some thistles. There's some leafy spurge issues out there, and also your county walk-in public access site last spring. I guess it was actually July 9th that we planted that little acreage to a multi-species native grass mix. So we're hoping that those things take off and will soon look like our Crestwood site. Some of our urban conservation efforts, education, working through the Moorhead Community Education is something we continue to do. We hold some evening workshops as well as native plant ID classes. Tony mentioned about the FM River Keepers. We held the water festival with the 4th graders throughout the area. We ordered 126 native plant plugs for the DGF school that were planted along the football field. And then we also held our 6th annual pint night at the Junkyard Brewery. We continue to do the same efforts this year, continuing working with the buyout properties for you folks. The Moorhead Community Education workshops are scheduled, as well as another pint night is scheduled. And in recent years, you probably have been hearing numerous stories of the One Watershed, One Plan that each watershed district, the Buffalo Red as well as the Wild Rice, are participating with. In 2020, they both received funding in efforts to prioritize, target, and install some of our projects. These were 2 that were completed this past year. The one on the left was just done around Christmas time. We have 4 landowners in the county that had severe erosion along the Buffalo River. We put in these stream barbs. Basically, it's a little rock dam that juts out into the river and forces the current to the other side of the bank. Like I said, we just did 4 of those probably right before the end of the year. And the one on the right over there, we don't have a whole lot of lakes in the county, but Turtle Lake has some high water issues, and this landowner came into us, and his erosion along his bank was eating into his yard, and we put in basically kind of a rock armored the bank there. So like I say, the One Watershed, One Plans have proven to be very popular. We did 14 projects last year where we cost shared 90% of the cost of the project with the landowner. We can also piggyback dollars from the federal government to make these things a little bit, make our money go a little further, but also to get that landowner, that 90% has really been a game changer. Last year we spent $514,000 on projects in Clay County. For 2025, we've got 11 projects on the books, and $290,000 already targeted for those projects. Estimated federal funds, I guess we're not sure yet, but those things take a little bit longer sometimes. And I guess in wrapping things up here, 2024 and 2025, our soil health program is something that we are partnering with the federal government on some regional partnerships to put cover crops on, and Commissioner Mojo mentioned the black soil, black ditches. Those are things that continue to kind of amaze us how much erosion over the years is still occurring out there. So our hopes are to enroll landowners into some type of a cover crop, get into some more no-till and some minimum tillage efforts out there to keep our soils in place. So, any questions?
Questions? Dave?
Yeah, just one observation on cover crops. The local initiative to get a aviation fuel project here. We were at the legislature yesterday, Commissioner Mojo and I talked to some people that have been to the meeting. And that's going to give a positive end on cover crops, because it's not going to be a matter of just cutting the grass and using it for fodder or whatever. It's actually there's going to be a market for it once this production begins.
Okay, interesting.
That's an interesting fact I learned, and I think it's something to keep in the back for our heads.
Well, I know it's a huge initiative with the federal government, but the state government has really latched onto that, and there's lots of dollars out there to help landowners to, you get those cover crops planted. So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Krabnoff?
Yeah, Kevin, thank you. Can we go back to the septic systems a little bit? So, does most of the time the applicants that come in for that, is it point of sale, or can you think of any other reason it kind of comes forward, or is it a home permit, someone's putting an addition on, or that type of thing?
I think what we're seeing is some of the, maybe they're not farmers, they just own a small tract or a small acreage out in the county. And when they come into us, there's a reason for either the system is not working, or they're trying to upgrade, and maybe at the point of sale that they need to upgrade that system to a mound system or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, the prices on these things have gone. When we first started doing it, they were about $10,000. I think they're closer to $20,000 now. Yeah. And what we're finding is some of those landowners out there that have their septic system isn't working. I mean, I don't know how. I know it's no fun having a septic system not working, and living out in the country, if you had problems, that is a huge issue. But I think where our process goes is that we have a lender in the county that those landowners end up going to the lenders, and for some reason they don't pass the credit check, and the system continues to be a polluter out there.
Right,
So,
and that would be in non-compliance already with Kent or with the county?
possibly, yeah. And I guess that I don't. After the system goes in, I think Kent probably goes out and does some checking to make sure that they're in compliance. But our part in there is primarily the middleman between the landowner and the lender, and are trying to make that work for the lenders, so they can see that there's a benefit, but they still have to make the loan pass. And that's where I think some of the issues are, is that for whatever reason they're a poor credit, and so that's where, like I say, there's about 30 plus counties in the state that have offered to put those invoices or bills on the property taxes for that, and there's a way of getting those paid. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Kevin, thank you, guys. Yep. Next, we have our 5-year plan update from Justin. Good morning, Justin.
Yes, good morning. So the first item I have is, it's with the CASA 34 mill and overlay project a couple weeks ago, we did save about $1 million. So I am updating the 5-year plan just for the 2025 construction season. There was a project in 2026 that we can afford now due to the lower bid prices. So at this time, I'm not adding any construction to the future years, just sliding a project from 2026 to 2025.
You want to go? All right, go ahead,
All
Commissioner.
right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Justin. We talked about this at the Highway Committee last week, and boy, we're really encouraged when bids come out lower than anticipated, so that we can shuffle things around and get things addressed earlier than maybe initially planned for. And I know the residents really appreciate that. And two, it does give us some flexibility when sometimes some roads maybe aren't lasting as long as we'd initially anticipated. So I'm really excited about, one, not only this action, but any potential actions that might come as we open up more bids this spring.
Yeah, I just want to add to that in this discussion. I know Justin mentioned that this project is pulled from 2026, and, you know, so technically that would free up money in 2026. And through in our discussions on highway tracking, we just felt that we should not make any changes to that at this point in time. There have been a few other things that have been coming up that we've been having on our radar, and that is what roads might be impacted by the Highway 10 reconstruction project that's coming up. That can have a real significant impact on traffic in the metro area and surrounding. So, you know, so we're going to kind of, I think it's the Highway Tracking Committee's recommendation that Justin not fill that $1 million gap in 2026 yet, in the event that we have something else that we hadn't maybe thought of earlier that might be the appropriate time to be able to go outside the box a little bit, so.
And then one thing I will mention too on the sheet that's in your packets, and I'll cover it when I have my annual department update, but the top right of that sheet, the blue number, the state aid regular construction allotment, in future years, we always estimate 3.9, which is conservative, and we did get our, this is money that comes from the gas tax. In 2025, it was almost $4.8 million, so that's also encouraging.
Very good. So, would you like action then to?
Yeah, I'm just looking to approve the amended 2025 construction program.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended 2025 construction program.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Okay, next we have request approval to advertise for SP 014-611-055.
Yes, so this is the concrete pavement rehabilitation project on CASA 11 that goes from CASA 18 to CASA 26. So we did receive some federal money on this and it was approved last week. So I'm just looking to advertise this project with a proposed letting date of March 18th.
You want to explain what that does? You know, I mean,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we don't have many concrete roads. On that specific stretch of road, if you ever have driven it, it has what a lot of people refer to as chatter. So you can feel it in your vehicle, especially in heavier trucks. So what we'll do is fix a lot of the broken panels, put in new panels, and then at the very end, we'll diamond grind it, which should provide a better ride.
those of you who've been on some of the road tours, you've seen where that has been done and the improvement that it really does create. So just wanted for the board to.
Yep. And another thing we do too is when that project was initially built, at that point in time, MnDOT wasn't really recommending sealing joints. So a lot of the issues that we've had with buckling over the last couple of years is those joints get filled with salt, sand, gravel, and when it gets hot, those joints can't work like they're supposed to, then causing the concrete to buckle. So we'll blow all the joints out and seal them as well with this project.
Yes.
Are you gonna shut down that road to do all this, or is it gonna be?
At certain points, there'll be closures on it, but part of the contract is they have to maintain access for everybody that lives on that road.
Time-wise, how long does it take?
2 to 3 weeks, roughly,
Okay.
depending on which contractor wins it.
Any other questions? All right, we're looking for a motion to approve the advertisement for the CPR and concrete grinding project.
I'll offer that motion.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right. Our next item is the request approval to advertise for SAP 014-632-031.
I did realize right now I have a mistake in the actual agenda name. It should be 014-634-031. In my,
Oh, okay.
on the bottom, it's correct, but
Yeah.
the actual title isn't correct.
In the packet
Yep.
information, it's correct.
Yep. Yeah, so this is the project that I talked about that we slid from 2026 to 2025. So I'm requesting approval to advertise this one. The proposed letting date's the same, March 18th.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the advertisement of SAP 014-634-031.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Is there other projects that might be linked to this where we could potentially see some benefits by getting more than one project by contract?
So that the first project that came in really well is just to the west of this one. So I would think that we're gonna see really competitive bids, just being that contractor already has his mobilization paid for to go to the one stretch. So I'm confident we'll receive good bids on this one.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Justin? All right, item number 7, request approval of resolution 2025-11 supporting a legislative appropriation. Oh, I'm sorry. We gotta have, okay. We gotta have our update from GIS. I was just gonna skip right by you, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning. There I am. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. It's my privilege to be here today to talk to you about what our department has been doing for the past year and what we'll be doing in this next year. And I was working on this yesterday, and I was so excited to tell you about so many things that I had to stop at 36 slides. So I'm going to have to go pretty quick here, because we have so much going on. Anyway, we're talking a little bit about our department. GIS and Communications is housed in the Government Center, and we provide all the geographic information system services for the county staff and departments, as well as we also provide communication services for all those departments and staff. We have 5 full-time staff, which is I'm grateful for. Over the last year or two, if you remember, we've changed the name of our department. We've changed the staffing. We've restructured a little bit. Last year, we picked up the communications coordinator and added her to our teams. And we also changed at the beginning of this year, our GIS technician became full-time, which gives us some more capacity. So what we have done is we've divided the staff into 2 separate teams. We have our GIS team and our communications team, and so now they're fully staffed. We have good quality people, and we're doing wonderful things with this. And I think that one of the things I'm supposed to talk about is whether or not we're going to have any needs in the next coming budget cycle. And I think that right now we're sitting very well. Our staffing is good, our equipment is good. We may have some issues with some expenses that we have for software and things, but beyond that, we're in really good shape as a department. All right, I copied this right off of our website. It talks about what the geographic information system folks do, and it's a tremendous list of things that we're doing, everything from keeping track of our data and making maps and keeping the data current, and I'll talk about some of these in more detail, but we also provide services to other departments, and we also do a lot of stuff for outside groups too. We support them. So one thing about the GIS and Communications department is our customers are both internal and external. So we have county people that we work with, but we also have external folks. A good example of that is the soil and water guys that were just here. We provide them with software and data and support for all the things that they're doing. And we will also do that for some of our other partners that we work with. All right, so one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about that we've done in the last year is talking a little about section corners here for a little bit. Section corners have a document that's recorded, and that's what makes them a recorded section corner. Surveyors use that when they go out to work. And the recorder's office houses those, but there's a different set of tools we use for them to access those remotely or online for free of charge. What we did this year was we added the way you search for that. Specifically, a section corner can be named many different things because it butts other sections. So it could be the northeast of section 2 or the northwest of section 1, or there's a lot of different ways to name it, and how they searched for it, they weren't always finding all the right documents. So one of the things we looked at adding was something called an identification number, so that each corner would have a specific number. So we said, we'll add that to this search tool, which is what we did. The BLM ID number searched. But typical of how these types of things work, we had to develop a process for how we number those. And we were able to identify a system that already was in place that the Bureau of Land Management had put together. We were able to adapt that, and we put together a document that our staff could then use to put the right corners on the right sections. And the reason I wanted to talk about this a little bit is because it was kind of quite a bit of work by a whole bunch of folks, but it's a nice way of showing how our department reaches out of our silo into the other departments that are working on this stuff, and we work all together to come up with a solution that's going to provide our customers with what they really need. And there's an example what these BLM numbers look like. They're super big and long, but they actually make a lot of sense to the folks that use them. So then now what we are doing with all that information is we're going to the next step, which is instead of having to search by number, here in the next month or so, we're going to roll this map application online. So you'll be able to just go to a map, click on it, and get all that same information, which makes it a lot faster and easier. We're going to design it so that it's mobile friendly, so that if you're a surveyor in the field and you want to look up the document instead of having to look up the document number or any of that stuff, you can just click on the map, click on the thing, it'll bring the document up for you. So that's one of the new tools that we're bringing online to support what's going on out there. If you remember, last year we were here, we applied for a grant that was going to help us do some of this stuff, and we were not successful with that, but we continued on with some of these things because they're really important, and we think that there's a big need. So speaking of section corner remonumentation, I figured I should talk about that a little bit. That's one of the things our department oversees is the remonumentation program, which is funded about $42,000 a year we're spending on that. We have a contracted land surveyor out there. It's True North Surveys we've selected to do that work for us each year, and they are slowly working our way up the eastern edge of our county. We finished 6 townships, and we'll be moving into the next tier here this next year, into the Highland Grove probably is where we'll go next, and then Cromwell, and slowly work our way up. I know it's hard to see on this little tiny map, but green is good, red is where we need to work, and we'll slowly, over time, get this done. At that funding rate, it takes us at least 2 years to do a township, maybe more, depending on what is there and how hard it is. Tansom was probably our most challenging township because the terrain is so rugged, but we'll slowly keep plugging away on it. We actually have a document we use to guide us, which is the picture of it there, the remonumentation program that tells us how we're going to work through this program. Yes?
Mark, on those corners, all those little dots, every one of them
Yep.
represents a corner. Are all those going to also receive that number that you just talked
Yes.
about then? And so those are going to be implemented right away on
Yep.
all corners?
And it's already been done on all the existing documentation.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely. Yep. And that's hopefully streamline how things are going, or how it is for people to find stuff. So it's just a good program, and we're really grateful that we have this remonumentation program taking place out there. Because the way it works is we remonument the corner, which means we get good, accurate information on where that corner is or was originally placed back in the 1860s. And then we get coordinates from it, and from the coordinates, we're able to update our GIS data. In last summer, in July, we sent our very own GIS coordinator, Mandy Olson, to San Diego for actually an international conference for GIS users, where she presented a talk on the remonumentation process that we do here at Clay County. So what we're doing is getting some attention, and so we're really proud of what we're doing and what she was able to present down there. And this is actually being spooled into some other places where we'll see this same information being delivered to other folks that are interested in how it can be done. So basically, we survey the corners, we move the stuff in GIS, then we redraw the parcel map to make it match so that we have good quality data. That's the whole goal. Yep. If there is one, they'll add it. If they have to add one, yes, they add it with it has a new cap. It'll say right on it, Clay County Survey Corner, yes, absolutely. They'll either find it if it exists, but if not, they reestablish it. And the reestablishment is, that's, the surveyors can explain how they do that, but that's what takes really a lot of work, because they have to take the records from the guys from 1860 and try to reenact them and put that in the exact same spot.
Mark, is that happening a lot?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a big push for it because with our GIS data, people love to see their parcel lines and stuff on maps, but if they're not in the right place, it's hard to use. So there's a need all across the land for this, and it's a good process. So talking about parcels, one of the big data sets that we maintain is our digital parcels. We have text parcels that we have in GIS, and we also take the data from our tax system every night and export that out, and then we use that in a whole bunch of different systems, but our department's the folks that have to help deliver that out. This morning, just in case you're trying to keep track, we had 30,178 tax parcels in Clay County. About half of those are inside Moorhead, and the GIS staff from City Moorhead actually maintain the digital parcel fabric inside for Moorhead in our data sets. The data lives here at the county, but they reach in and they do the work inside Moorhead. So that arrangement works well for us. All right, next I'll talk a little bit about imagery. We did a high-resolution aerial imagery last April, and that has been available for staff use for several months now. It'll be available on our online maps hopefully in the next week or two. And then, if you remember, I was here a couple weeks ago, we got a program going this year where we'll capture high-resolution oblique imagery this spring. And we actually got the kickoff emails on that yesterday, so that project will be moving forward. So that's another wonderful piece of information. Addressing, something we do all the time. We generate addresses. We train people on how the addressing system works, and we also support the E911 systems we're currently using and the NG911 that's coming online. Last February, Clay County delivered our next-gen 911 data, which is roads, address points, and emergency service zones, to the state of Minnesota's, their enterprise system, and was accepted, which was a huge step. And we did that again at the end of this last year so that their data is current and up to date. And that data it's a big deal, and it's going to be used for a lot of things statewide, but more locally, it's used at our regional dispatch center for the stuff that they're doing there. So we keep all that current. One of the things we're going to talk about we'll be doing this year is with signs. With this, our highway guys specifically, our highway department has a sign crew that goes out and takes care of signs. We're going to change the software system they use to keep track of those signs, and we'll be doing that in-house here in the next few months, within the next month or so. Nice part about this is we're doing this in-house, so we have the expertise on hand to do it, and this is something we couldn't do before. We never had enough staff time to do these kind of projects. So now that our GIS technician's full-time to take up some of that load, our GIS coordinator is able to work on these type of things, which is, I think, saves us money and gives us a better end result. But hopefully by sign season, which will be whenever frost comes out, we'll be have their new system up and running, and it'll provide them some good tools. We're also doing this, yep. Excuse me.
On the sign inventory,
Yes.
are these treated like our other highway signs?
Yes.
Are we responsible for
Yes,
all
you're
repair
talking about
and
like the blue house number signs?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And if you remember, I talked last year, I think, we just finished last year replacing them all throughout the entire county. They were about 25 years old, and we're hoping to get another 25 years out of them. There's about 4,800 of those blue signs out there. But yeah, we keep track of not just those, but also all the highway signs that they have. All the signs in all the right-of-way of all our county roads will be kept track of in there. We're doing this, I mentioned we'll be doing this in-house. We're also doing it in conjunction with some other counties. We work with something called MCGISA, or the Minnesota County GIS Association, where we share knowledge and tools between us, so it helps keep our costs low and expertise high. Communications, better move on to these folks, because they do some amazing stuff too. There's a massive list here of stuff they do. One of the big ones they're doing is right here now, is where they host this board meeting, basically. We've got Jackie right here in the room, and Tim is streaming us online on the internet and recording our meetings. So every week when you're here, we're 2 of our staff here making sure everything's taken care of and getting all that information out. One of the big things they'll be working on this in the next 2 or 3 months is something called process automation and digital services, which is a really fancy word for forms. We're going to be rolling out a new forms platform, which allows us to do a lot. I think it'll do it better than what we've had before. Plus, what we're adding to this also is the capability of getting payments through forms, which is something, believe it or not, we've never been able to do through an online form. So we'll be able to collect money depending on what the form might happen to be for. But it's a big change. There'll be a lot of work going into it, but hopefully it will go well and provide us good stuff. Another thing we're going to be moving to very soon is moving our county code online. Our county code was hosted before in a certain way, and it hadn't been updated for a long time. So what we've done is we've taken the code and we've updated it or recodified it, and we actually were able to do that in-house and saved ourselves about $20,000 doing that. And we have that code ready to be delivered on the new platform, which will be on our main website. It'll be searchable, just like you can search our site minutes. You'll be able to search the code also. We're trying to tie this in with the stuff that Planning and Zoning is doing with their development ordinance, so it'll all roll out together, and it'll all be available. Nice part about this new platform for you specifically is when we do code changes, we'll do it through the platform, and we'll actually see it redlined, how it's going to look presently, how it's going to look, and then when they accept it, it just will switch out. But it has the capability to show versioning, so you can show what it used to look like, what it does look like, those kind of things. So it's a pretty slick platform for us to use. They'll be working on the EDA or EDC or website, which is for economic development. That is coming soon. I think that will go live someplace in early March. We'll see that, and that will be a nice way of delivering that information. We're doing something called a department header, which allows us to have it look like our website, but you have different buttons and menus than our main website has, so that it's targeted to that specific type of information.
Mark, from a Google standpoint, when somebody might be researching economic development for Clay County or whatever, somebody might be looking for business or even a residential opportunity here, will that have a high?
We hope so.
What do they call that?
Yeah, results. What we'll do is on every page we put keywords, and those keywords are what Google's looking for. So we'll try to make sure that those are targeting what we think people are searching for. So yeah, we'll do as best we can, and we adapt those sometimes if we have to.
Thank you.
Monthly, Bits of Clay comes out. Super fun newsletter. Get to see who's been here the longest, that kind of thing. See who's moving up the list. But that's a nice piece of thing that comes out every month just to our county staff. I want to talk a little bit about digital signage. We now have 15 of these different deployments out there, everywhere from the attorney's conference rooms to the VSO office to law enforcement center, family service center. This floor, when we're not having meetings, we have a wide array of these things. The one I always like to mention is the bottom left there is one that shows in the booking area of the correctional facility. If you ever are unfortunate enough to have to go there, there's a video that runs every 3 minutes that tells you how to be an inmate. And that was produced by our staff in-house. That was done, they were finding that people weren't always able to read the brochures that they were giving them, so now they have them watch a video. And there's some more of our applications. Excuse me. One thing I mentioned last year, we rolled out a new website, and from that, we came out with a new set of colors. You see those more and more and more between the stuff we're producing. Printed materials, website stuff, everything is using colors. Even a slideshow matches this. You'll see that branding more and more often as we work with through our system, that those are the Clay County colors, and the purpose for that is so that stuff that's coming from us looks like it's coming from us. And we also support events like this wonderful ribbon cutting we had a few months back. We take care of whatever happens to be needed. We'll take care of those. These new buildings, we were also highly involved with the promotion of them, as well as the signage. All of the signage inside and outside those buildings was done by our department. And it includes everything from door numbers to signs for offices to signs along the roadway. And one thing, excuse me again, but those new buildings, one thing I'm proud of is I got this here's a nice picture of this team of folks on a Friday night assembling chairs in the lobby of the new DMV. Because our whole department is all about getting things done. It doesn't matter whether it's in our department's realm or not. If something needs to happen, we'll help. And we stepped up and took care of that. And I'm grateful for their dedication. And actually, at the end of the day, the DMV, the entire lobby ended up becoming our department's responsibility, included all the signage, chairs, TVs, everything. We were responsible for that to make sure that it all was up and running and working by the time we opened. And we're all happy to say, yes, we did, including that awesome logo sign there. So the GIS and communication staff are here to serve, and I couldn't be prouder of this bunch of folks that I get to work with every day. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, Mark, just an observation. The response of your team to the next generation 911 data, the GIS data we needed, was seamless. You told us what you needed. We got you a little bit of help on it, but you guys did a great job. And being on the Northwest Emergency Communication Committee Board, that's not the case for a lot of people, a lot of counties in the state. It's been a real problem, and you guys had it done right, and we're an example for other counties to look at early in the game. And you need to get acknowledged for that. That was a big bite. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just, I think I mentioned this before, but going down to our AMC conferences, and when you go walk through, if you're walking through a vendor fair and some of these other things, and you come across somebody who might be promoting some GIS stuff, and you stop and talk to them, and their first question, do you know Mark Sloan? And it's like you're an icon, out there, just so you know that.
Thanks. Well,
There's
I've been around a while.
A lot of people who really look up to what you do, and we certainly do here in Clay County too. So.
Speaking of that, one of the things I should mention, I talked a little bit briefly, was about McGISA, the Minnesota County GIS Association. Mandy Olson and myself host every 2 weeks McGISA Tea Time, where anybody can tune in and ask questions for GIS folks, and it's become hugely popular. So it's kind of fun. We get recognized now by lots of folks. So
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
you're welcome.
All right, now can I move on to number 7? Okay, we have a request approval of a resolution 2025-11 supporting a legislative appropriation of $60.4 million to complete the Minnesota financial commitment for the construction improvements and land acquisition necessary for the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion project in Minnesota.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Aaron.
It's tough to follow that presentation, and I think you just covered pretty much everything that I was going to talk to about as the resolution. First off, our sympathies to Steve and his family. They lost an uncle last week, and so he is at the funeral today. That's why I'm sitting in for him. The agenda item for this is the resolution of 2025-11, supporting the appropriation of $60.4 million to complete the diversion project. I know that Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Ebinger were down there yesterday, and maybe they can fill in some of the gaps as part of this presentation. But this is one of the county's priorities. And if any of the public wants to see what the 3 priorities are, you can go to the Clay County website. And this is the flood diversion funding. The other ones are mental health acuity and the 911 emergency replacement fund. But this is concerning the diversion funds. This $60.4 million does include the request as part of the Moorhead request as well, which was $16 million, and then all the other projects that are going on. So the total request for 2025 would be the $60.4 million. And with that being said, I will open it up to questions.
I'm going to turn right to wait to my right to Commissioner Mojo. I'm sure she's
I
got a
was
few things to
expecting
say.
that.
You did a really great job with that.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Darren, for kicking that off. One, this number is probably not a surprise to our citizens. This is something that we've been advocating for the need for this funding for a long time. Felt not only would it be important for us to have this as one of our legislative priorities, but specifically to have a resolution speaking to what the need is. As we had huge discussions yesterday, and I was going to report on that in my committee reports, but we met with 6 representatives, 2 senators, the governor, and chairs of several committees on what this need is. And $60.4 million is all encompassing, all in, all out. Certainly, however, the legislature wants to bestow or piecemeal what that request is, that will be up to their decision. But last night, Commissioner Krabenoff went to the Buffalo Red Watershed District to advocate for them also signing a resolution of support, since we are making the financial ask on their behalf for their 2 projects. I'm not going to steal his thunder there, but that was something that was unanimously approved. And so as we go down to St. Paul for the next undisclosed amount of days, it will be really helpful for us to have this resolution of support as part of the packet, even more so for those of you that sit around the diversion table to have the resolution to present to them as well. Certainly, we're doing the best that we can, given what the financial outlook is for the state. We'll really know a lot more after the estimates and outlooks come back on, I think it's March 6th now, but I can stand for any questions on this, but this is not a surprise. This includes the city of Moorhead's needs for their lift stations. It includes the road raise for Georgetown, the mitigation for landowners in the mitigation area, the cemetery mitigation, the watershed projects in Wolverton as well.
All right, Commissioner Ebinger, you want to add to that?
Yeah, number one, Commissioner Mojo did a lion's share of the work on this yesterday. She and Commissioner Krabenoff have established a great rapport with the folks at the Capitol, and that made it very easy to go in there and get the message out. We also are very grateful to the chamber. We have had some issues with getting guidance into the legislature with the diversion, and the chamber was there. Cale Dunswoody, got his name right, had been instrumental in arranging a lot of this. But I think one of the real factors that worked for us, for the first time, we had an executive director that showed up wonderfully. Jason Benson, the new executive director of the Diversion Authority, he was as briefed up and as articulate about the details of this arrangement and this operation and the needs as if he had been the Cass County engineer, but he sounded like a man who'd been the executive director there since day one. He had his facts, his information down, and of course his association with the state of Minnesota as a general in the Minnesota National Guard didn't go unnoticed with our legislators too. So this was a great opportunity. I left a little early and Commissioner Mojo in a report, they got the governor, and some progress appears to be getting done there. But this was just a great session. Overall, it was a great day with a lot of positive feedback.
Well, somebody who's been part of that diversion project from the beginning, it's one of the, when we formed the original joint powers agreement between Fargo-Moorhead, Cass, and Clay counties, one of the responsibilities of Clay County was to do everything on our part we could to obtain state funding for this project, for the work that's done in Minnesota. And, this is just another example of us also holding to our commitment through our original JPA on the work that we do. And so I just want to put out a thank you to everybody who has been spending their time in St. Paul and with the Watershed District, and all of those things, helping to fulfill our commitment. Now, hopefully the state will come through on what's being asked of them to fulfill that ultimate goal. So just want to say thank you for that. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I do have a little bit of a follow-up maybe that I feel like is really important for this board to discuss. There are some comments that have been made around different tables about a potential for holding up Minnesota project construction contingent on Minnesota funding. And, as someone who sat on the governor's task force that really, saw that there were so many sacrifices being made on all different sides of this, for us to now in the middle of purchase agreements and buyouts and moving forward in this, all of a sudden hear that there are Minnesota projects that could potentially be held up because of the lack of Minnesota funding is really concerning. Our avenue for funding in Minnesota is vastly different than the avenue for securing funding on the North Dakota side. And I can unequivocally say that we're working very, very hard to secure that funding. It just is challenging, and particularly challenging because Fargo's relationship to Bismarck in regards to population size is vastly different than Clay County's population in regards to Hennepin and Ramsey. And, we are continuing to have these dialogues, but it's disheartening to come back and hear, well, these projects that need to happen in Minnesota in the next 12 months could be delayed because of funding. Those of you that sit around that diversion table, and I know you're doing this, but from someone who's not on that board, any help we can get to state why that's maybe a disingenuous statement, given the fact that we made those promises to people, not only in Georgetown, but also south of Moorhead and in Comstock and in Wolverton.
Well, I agree. I'm a little disappointed. Now, I know there was some discussion about holding back when there was some discussion about what needs to be done in some of the rural areas with raising roads, and that was primarily north of the Moorhead area. And I think those projects were $5 million of this total ask. And when we were going through this project, I certainly said that those are areas that could be held off to the very end. They were shorter projects. They're basically maybe raising a few township roads here and there to make sure that they have access in and out during times of a 100-year flood. And, but some of these other projects, when it comes to 100-year flood protection for Georgetown, right in the area where the diversion's gonna go into right just north of Georgetown, for us to be delaying that. And again, I don't mind a delay from a standpoint of, working on the funding, but to have those things not done when this project becomes operational would be unacceptable from the Minnesota side. And I will continue to argue that. And I also believe that it's probably even addressed in the Minnesota DNR permit. So we just always need to keep that in mind, so. Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, another issue that comes up, until this project's certified, there's not gonna be a movement through FEMA to get us out of the floodplain. And there's gonna be plenty of people in North Dakota and Minnesota who are paying tax, or paying insurance for flood protection or lacking those protections that are not gonna be able to get any relief until the project is certified. And even then, it's gonna be, 2 or 3 years. But this is something that it's not strictly a benefit to the Minnesota side as far as these projects that are in Minnesota. They are essential for the completion and certification and relief from flood insurance. So I think everybody benefits if we move along with this.
You know, and I pointed out the work that's in regards to Georgetown, but we can't forget the work that's being done on the southern part where there's a lot of impacts due to the storage areas that deal with Wolverton and Comstock and those areas. And so all of those areas are going to be equally important that they're done and fulfilled as part of the project. So, and I do want to add though, and I do want to I mentioned thanks to the board here who has been doing this, but I do want to send out a thank you to our current diversion board chair, Tony Grinberg, for going to St. Paul yesterday too, along with our commissioners and Jason Benson, our new executive director. I think that was very helpful and long overdue, quite frankly, in terms of more involvement by the executive director in what we're trying to accomplish on the Minnesota side.
So my last piece to that point, having Commissioner Grinberg and Jason Benson as well, part of what we talked about is revisiting that historical component, what the agreement was between Governor Burgum and Governor Dayton, and they are requesting a appointment with Governor Armstrong to update him on the status of this, and then two, as we were able to talk to Governor Walz yesterday, to extend that invitation to have the two of them come together for some sort of roundtable to talk about what the conditions of the DNR permit were, why it was so imperative that these Minnesota side projects were included as part of the project. And I'm hopeful that we are able to get to that point. Certainly, it's helpful to have our North Dakota partners part of that.
All right, so we have before us as an agenda item the approval of this Resolution 2025-11, supporting legislative funding.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of Resolution 2025-11.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, a second by Commissioner Kravinoff. Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. And Darren, I think once this resolution is signed, could you forward that to the executive director of the Diversion Authority and anybody else that we want that to go to?
Thank
you. I mean, it's already been done with the legislature, right?
We'll just include it as part of our packet for our lobbying
Yeah, okay,
efforts.
okay. But if we could send a copy of the signed resolution.
Do we need to get a copy to Moorhead?
Well, we can talk about it. We have a legislative update standing meeting with them once weekly, so I'll bring that up.
All right. Let's, thank you, Darren. Next, we have, I'm not going to jump over you on this one, so, Roy, we're going to do our annual update on technology services. Good morning, Roy.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the time this morning. Run through my few slides here of my update from my department, just things that have been up in the last year and things coming up here in the next year. First and foremost, in July here, this board recognized the need for a new cybersecurity analyst, so I greatly appreciate the recognition of that for the county and increasing the needs of the IT department here. It's always great to have that reinforcement from the county board for our department. So as of July, we were short-staffed then after that position opened and was filled. And we just finally filled our last position here in mid-December. So we're finally full staff now again. It feels good. We got a hardworking staff, a nice backbone. The two new gentlemen that started, one's got a really high amount of initiative. The other one is just rock solid. Things are going very well with their two new hires. Just kind of recap here in the last kind of year to year here, employee counts have gone up significantly, which, we, as our department, we feel that a little bit, so about 10% up according to HR. We support roughly 25 buildings in the county. Our staff ratio with that additional hire now drops down just a little bit, which is getting to be a little more comfortable, but still kind of medium and high range throughout the state. Desktops and laptops, we've cut those quite a bit just because a lot of staff still had a desktop and a laptop, and now we've switched more to just laptops, kind of cut some of that waste that they don't need. Not always a popular decision, but if they're not using it to their full potential, let's get rid of it and save a little bit of money. Landlines is still about the same. Cell phones went down just slightly, but our active assets went up quite a bit. So not necessarily things like desktops and laptops, but cameras, sound systems, all other type of IT equipment that we use in a day-to-day capacity. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Is that because we opened up 2 new buildings?
That's part of it.
Part of it?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Every new building, the assets grow. Absolutely. This is just kind of overview what we see in a typical kind of year to year of tickets. This year right now, or in 2024, we had about, a little over 300 tickets a month, different visitors and help desk calls directly as well. So in 2025 here, we're trying to get a little bit better on the calls that we get in. We'd also like to create a corresponding ticket if it's going to take more than just like a password reset, just to help track a little bit better, manage our time a little bit better, try to be as efficient as we can. And that also helps us gauge, in a few years, will we need another position? Are we kind of over our head here with what we have? So any little indicators that we can use to track that is very helpful to us. So a lot of you know, a lot of you have been to our office. You've received help from me or my staff, and so the typical support. You have a problem, you call, we fix it. There's a resolution. Hopefully quicker than not, but a lot of things behind the scenes here that we do that not a lot of people quite understand is, we'll have a lot of vendor negotiations. There's a lot of pricing back and forth. It's a lot of haggling and hassle and trying to play the vendor game with costs. A lot of my staff are, along with their 8 to 4:30, they're working nights and weekends too. So there's a lot of systems that can't be upgraded during the day because staff are working. So we try to reduce the amount of outage that there is for staff, just so they can continue doing what they need to do, and which is help the public and the different people that they serve. We've even just recently adjusted some schedules with our staff, so I kind of opened that up a little bit. So now instead of 8 to 4:30, now we have staff here from 7:30 to 5, which helps, and I'm hoping maybe even we'll get to the point where it's 7 to 5:30, just so we have a little more, coverage for, the staff that come in earlier, the staff that stay later. Sometimes it's nice to have that availability. Otherwise, we do have on-call staff. We designate one person every month to be the on-call person. They're almost like a dispatcher, so they'll receive the call, nights, weekends, after hours, and then they will track down one of our team here to help them out with an issue if they can't solve it themselves. One thing we have coming up here, we actually have our cybersecurity analyst, Jocelyn Sloan. She'll actually be speaking to a few students at Dakota Boys and Girls Ranch here on the 20th, just to kind of give a background of what she does, how she helps in this industry, things to look out for, just to kind of keep the word spread with that, and I think it'll be a good kind of start to reach out to those younger minds too, and that opens up some opportunities for us in the future. A couple other things here, like account management. We handle all of our Verizon account, cell phone account. Currently we have, I think I saw roughly like 130 devices. That equates to about $140,000 a year in costs. Shipping savings, we also have Amazon accounts, so my department handles all the Amazon accounts and sub-accounts for all the rest of the departments. Amazon's very popular. We spent about $175,000 last year on Amazon, which roughly saves about $4,500 in shipping costs, just doing the Amazon Prime. Excuse me. Alongside of that, we on those nights and weekends, and even during the day when we can, we test these systems that we host for all the departments. We test our backups. Unfortunately, sometimes we need those. We don't always like to have to do that, but it's good continuity. It's a business. It's good testing. It's good to have a working knowledge that your disaster recovery systems are working and your plan is working as expected. We also provide a little bit of training too for any staff. So any topics, if you have a new software platform that's coming out and we're familiar with it, please reach out. That is something we're more than happy to train your team, or even if you just want a little more knowledge on something you're using now, please reach out. So just some expenses just over the last couple of years. Not a whole lot of change. The onboarding costs are typically hardware, laptops, monitors, desktops, things like that, cell phones. Annual expenses would be kind of the cell phone recurring charges, software licensing increases. That's where we're seeing most of the increases year over year. But just kind of a quick slide on that. A few recent and upcoming projects here. Of course, our security enhancements are ongoing. Those just every week there's something new that we're looking at improving, just to try to increase that baseline that we have for our security posture here at the county. Just a few weeks ago, the board approved some infrastructure replacement and PC refresh cycles, so we'll be starting to work on those as well. The local long distance service with our telephone provider, we worked pretty closely. Mark Sloan had kind of geared that for us, and we set up renewed a new 5-year contract with Lumen, and that's going to save us, I think, roughly close to $800,000 a month just moving to a new structured plan there. We also have our compliance committee, which the board approved late last year, and you were graciously able to designate one of you. Commissioner Mojo was accepted that, so we appreciate that, and we're hoping to get our first kickoff meeting here next month.
I'm not the smartest one in that. Sure.
Take a look around.
You'll do great, I promise.
Hey.
A couple other changes. Our tax software, we're now looking to get that into a hosted environment. So we're working with a few other counties, and if we onboard as a group of counties, I think 4 of them is the minimum, but that can kind of save a little bit of costs as well. So right now we have 2 counties, maybe 3, so we're just hoping to get 1 more and onboard that. So that'll save quite a bit of time on one of my staff that works nights and weekends doing upgrades, so there'll be hopefully less nights and weekends for her. She's, I'd say 35 weeks out of the year she's working after hours or weekends. It's a lot, so hoping to reduce that toll on her. Another software that's not on here, but with the attorney's office, Brian and I have been working with a vendor here and some of his staff on potential for moving to some of the cloud for his, kind of client data, but we're still working through that. We're not sure if it's a good fit yet, but that's another thing on the horizon as well. Around law enforcement, the e-citation solution, so as officers write tickets in the vehicles, that's all software driven, of course. They can print tickets right in the vehicles. That is on its last leg, so we've been working the last couple of years here to try to figure out a good solution for that, but we're waiting for BCA approval on certain things. It's been a real headache. There's not anything great at the current position we're in, but what we have now is cheap, and it's hard to move away from something that's cheap, but it's also end of life, getting to be end of support here too, so that'll be another hurdle coming up with the 6 law enforcement agencies in Clay County. I think that is all I have. Any questions for me?
Roy, a while back, we decided, and even through the advice of the MCIT, we used to host an awful lot of other counties' information on our system, and we made the decision to go away from that. Yes. From a security standpoint with all the new cyber stuff that goes on. And my question to you was in Mark's presentation this morning, another area where there's an awful lot of significant information is people looking for land records issues and parcel information. And Mark mentioned that we have the city of Moorhead, which is half of all of our parcels, roughly, or over half of all of our parcels, comes into our system and maintains it. Is there any concern there? Are we, in terms of that same issue? I know Moorhead's part of Clay County, which is helpful, but when you see these presentations that we've had about the ability to go through back doors and even access through a printer or something like that, and they can work their way in, I just, your thoughts on that? Yeah,
and since that incident in late 2023 with the cyber event, that has been a focus. So every other connection coming in, we've reviewed, and that was one of them. Our connection to Fargo, our connection to Moorhead, connection to MPS as well. So now there's extra rules in place. There's bare minimum what they can get to, what they need, different security reviews in place. So that we feel we're in a good position on that. And then
all I wanted to hear.
Yeah, and then to also speak to your comment about the hosting counties. All those counties, just for an update for all of you, those counties have moved off onto the vendor's cloud solution or their local on-prem to each respective county. So all that data is now off of our system, or has been since late December.
Good, very good. Well, we appreciate your work on all of that. So
yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Rory.
All right, thank you.
Board, running behind, we're going to take about a 3-minute break here. Back. Our back in session. Our next item is our request approval to set a public hearing to consider amending the Clay County Tobacco Ordinance. Darren, you're going to lead this conversation?
I am going to lead this conversation as well. Kind of out of my wheelhouse, but I've been in on some of these meetings. So this agenda item is just to request the approval to have a public hearing on the tobacco policy or the tobacco ordinance. As you recall, on December 17th, the ordinance passed with public input. On January 14th, we did have board discussion with the new commissioner, Commissioner Bear, and there was some discussion on that. And so you decided on February 4th to have a work group to discuss all of those issues. The next step coming out of that work group would be to have a public hearing. We do have to give a 10-day notice, and I think the other thing that was up in the air is when this ordinance went into effect. So I know that Commissioner Campbell had some concerns about when it became effective. So the decision was to open up to another public hearing, and after talking to Jackie, I think that March 4th would be the earliest that we could have one. And that would be up to the board on whether you wanted to do it on March 4th or at a later date.
Well, I guess one thing there was no decision made to have a public hearing. That's what we're here for today. I just want to clarify that no decisions can be made in the work group that we had.
Yes, that is correct.
Conversation was there, and it was, Commissioner Bear has since then asked to have it relooked at and reopened in a public hearing process. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I do want to point out that, or I have a couple of questions in terms of if we move forward with a public hearing to amend, do we have to provide some sort of language of what we'd be amending?
I would assume so, because the public's going to want to know what they're coming for the public hearing for. So, yeah.
So, I know in our work group session, there was kind of all over the board here. There were some who certainly supported the original ordinance. There were others who did not, and there was some who thought maybe tweaking it to deal right now more with just the vapes, and then others that, anyway, so, just to start this conversation off, I certainly think that for now, our focus should be on the vape, and targeting that through the ordinance, but I'm gonna open it up here for, and then I don't know, Kathy, do you have some proposed different options that we could be looking at?
Yes, Jason did write a recommendation on what could be changed in the original ordinance. So do you
have copies of that, or?
I have, I can
We can make copies if you want to just
Yeah, I
read
wonder
it
if we
off
could,
and then have
maybe
Jackie make some
Jackie,
copies
if
for
you
everybody.
could make copies of that, just for, as we're gonna talk about it, I think we should try to establish some parameters about what the public hearing would be about.
yes,
We're not creating a new ordinance. We're, the request from Commissioner Bear is to amend an ordinance, and so I think we need to be clear on that, and then we can certainly set the date for the public hearing, and then maybe while she's doing that, this is something where I certainly want all of our board members present, and if the proposed time is March 4th, are we all available to be here on March 4th? Or maybe,
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now, because,
That's 4th and 5th.
so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking for that.
okay, because I don't want to have us set a public hearing date that would have one or two of us not here, so.
Question, Chair.
Yes.
Can we set a public hearing date? Do we have to set the date we're having that public hearing, or can we have a public hearing in the future?
I
Make
think-
it work for all
Well,
five of
I think the notice has to be date specific. Commissioner,
I've got a conflict on the 4th.
you do have a
It's
conflict?
at 11:30.
At 11:30? Okay. We would have to be done by 11:30.
11 o'clock to get there.
All right. Thank you, Jackie.
Can you find that confirmation?
I also believe that is the chamber at the legislature.
Capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what those two are looking up, I think. right now.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday would be March 11th. Next date would be the following Tuesday, or
Well,
I'm trying to open it.
would be the 11th?
Can, We talk about the handout first.
I think we just want to make sure here, if you can just bear with us for a minute. Brian, maybe from your standpoint, I think if we hold a public hearing, what does the notice need to?
Right, and I think we'd just look back at the last one, but I think it would just be review of the current ordinance and potential amendment or discussion of possible amendment. I think this is specific language that Jason's proposing about it, but I don't.
That could be presented, that could be
Right,
presented
that'd be,
as
that's
part of
not
the
about
public
what's
hearing.
the, right, but I
It doesn't
think
need
it's
to be in the notice.
correct. I think the notice is the discussion of the current ordinance and
I want it
towards
open. It won't open, I can't get this to open, so.
So when we have this hearing and we're trying to come up with a specific amendment at this moment, right? For this hearing.
Well, I don't believe you have to do that here today.
Okay.
I think Kathy presented this, but that's not really, I think the point being what you need to put on there is a publication of, I'd have to go back and look how we did it before, but I think it's just announcement that you're going to discuss that specific ordinance and discuss potential amendment of that ordinance. You don't have to,
And after the public hearing, we can make the amendment as as we wish it.
correct, you'd have that public hearing, discuss that, because, I mean, the public could come and say,
I agree.
we would want some, I mean, they can propose, that's the whole reason to have a
Right.
public hearing is allow
Otherwise,
them.
we're going to end up amending the amendment.
Correct. I mean, right, the idea, this is just some recommended language, this is fine, but this isn't, like, you're not locked in or somehow, I mean, it's just, I mean, we could come up with the language to say what needs to be put on there, but really, it's just discussion of potential amendment to the current enacted ordinance. I mean, that's what's basically gonna have to say.
Well,
Okay, so the Moorhead Area Day at the Capitol starts on that Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. So we will already have to have been on the road, and so I'm not sure what the appetite for
yeah,
advertising for 2 commissioners to call in remotely.
Is there a way to do it the last Tuesday in February? On the 25th, 4th, or 5th?
So, yep, it needs 10 days. It would work for the extra if we were able to publish, its deadline is noon today, to publish on Thursday, but we also need to publish in one other, and so that would be the forum, and so that wouldn't be till next Wednesday it'd be published.
all right, and I just do not want to have it where we would have potential calling in. I think we get into some of those requirements of when you call in, being able, how you vote, and you gotta be on camera and all those other things that are part of that. And then also, then the 11th, Commissioner Mojo is gone on the 11th. So I think we'd probably be, I think the best thing for us to do would be to look at would it be the 18th?
18th.
That works for me.
Yeah, the 18th of March. I leave after that, so I would be here on the 18th. And Commissioner Ebringer, how about you? All right, so. 18th of March, yes.
I think our administrator's gone then.
I better make sure too here.
Yeah, the 18th would work for me.
All right, so, and again, I don't, because of our previous action where we had this thing not being enforced till June 1 anyway, I think the March 18th would be okay, in terms of the date to hold the public hearing.
Yeah, just one thing, maybe clarify now, because it was an issue in the last one. Just because we have the hearing on the 18th, are we planning on voting on any changes, or?
Well,
I know you wanted more time last time.
I don't, I think the process is you hold the hearing. I think the board has the prerogative to act on it that day, but we also have time to,
I agree.
You know, so I'm not gonna suggest that a decision will be made on any amendment that day. I think that's this board's prerogative.
Yep.
And if, you know, like for me, the last time, I would have preferred more time. But if, you know, if there's 4 of you who would disagree with me, then that's the way it would be. But at this point, I would, if somebody wanted time to analyze new information that might be presented in the public hearing, then so be it. I think that's fine. I think I don't think we're harming anybody's business or any of that type of thing up until June 1. So we can take the time that we need to get it right.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm just, Matt's messaging me too. Yeah, he said we can have as many public hearings as you need and that you don't need to make a decision that day, so.
Pardon me?
I didn't hear any of that.
You don't have to make a decision
No.
that day. Yep, you can have as many public hearings as you need.
Right. I mean, it could even be something where we might even want to continue a public hearing. Those are all options that we have available to us, so. But anyway, so I think, I think the discussion is today, according to our attorney, I don't think we need to be too specific, other than that we're looking at amending, and we're holding a public hearing to consider amending the ordinance, and then let the information come out in the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to request a approval to set up a public hearing to consider amending the Clay County Tobacco Ordinance on March 18th.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kravinoff and second by Commissioner Bear to hold a public hearing. I think we want to have a time specific on there, and I think because we're so far out, I think maybe, what do we want to look at? You want to, time-wise, you want it 9?
So the last time we did it, didn't we go about 10:30? Didn't we get our business done first knowing, huh?
It's split. I mean, we had a bunch of business after that too. I know I left by 11.
Well, I'm in favor of, I guess, what's that, 9:30?
What, so you're incorporating 9:30 as part of your?
Yeah, my motion.
Does that meet your second? All right, we have a motion, a second to hold a public hearing on amending the tobacco ordinance for 9:30 on
Discussion.
March 18th.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right.
Thank you.
And then Kathy, I think maybe these things, maybe you can bring this back again on the 18th.
Sure, and Mr. Chair, that did come from the Public Health Law Center, who also kind of helped with drafting the whole ordinance, so, but yes, we'll bring that back.
All right. I just wanted to make one comment while we're on this topic, and I went to a comment that was made in our discussion in the work group, that other entities, if they wanted to, they could do their own ordinance that could be less restrictive than ours. And that is not even legal to do. Once a county adopts an ordinance, another entity can make it more restrictive, but not less restrictive. So, Brian, am I correct in that?
True.
Okay. So I just wanted to point that out, so.
And I don't know if that was the comment that was actually, I don't recall exactly the comment. I think the comment was about whether they could make one, which they can, but it would have to be more restrictive than what we're looking at.
Right,
what we've
right,
already
yeah.
done, or
And
what's
it-
in statute.
The comment was that another entity could do their own, assuming that they maybe wanted to incorporate what we didn't, or less restrictive, I guess, and that was, they can't do that, so.
I'm sure I made that comment.
Well, again, I don't care about the names, it was just a point. All right, let's move on to our committee reports. Did I start with last time? I think I started with Dave last time. Did you go? Okay. All right, Dave, you want to go first then?
Yeah. Let's see, on Tuesday, the 4th, we had a work session following the regular meeting. And I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm trying to remember what that was. Oh, the tobacco ordinance. And we moved on that today. On the 6th, I attended the Emergency Communication Network Legislative Committee virtually, looked at education outreach. There were no updates, or planning, there were no updates. The House agreed to a couple of bills that will be reintroduced, basically for reimbursement to some counties for purchase of portable and mobile radios. And not a whole lot occurred other than general business after that. Excuse me, my notes are a mess here. I did them quick this morning. Had a diversion special meeting to discuss a consultant agreement with Jody Smith, who recently moved to a North Dakota job that had her leave as lands director for the Diversion Authority, and we came up with a contract agreement for her. And then yesterday, went to the legislature with Commissioner Mojo. We've covered that fairly well. I'll leave it for Commissioner Mojo if there's anything we need to add to that, but it was a productive meeting. I really appreciate the support we got from the chamber and from the Tony Grinberg, our chair for the Diversion Authority, and our new executive director, Jason Benson. So that completes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Krabanoff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the other piece on Tuesday the 4th is we had our work group, good discussions on the tobacco ordinance and moving forward with the motion we just approved. The other part was at a presentation by Matt Jacobson from County Zoning and Planning about the changes to the our county amendments. On, excuse me, I'm off my notes right now. Just one moment, please. Anyway, working toward the amendments of our county zoning and planning. There's 8 chapters with it, and the potential of having hearings in the future to discuss those in a open house forum, so that we get feedback from the public before we make any major changes, and to come before this this board for the final acceptance, excuse me, of those changes. On the Wednesday the 5th, February 5th, I did have our Clay County Collaborative meeting with our new coordinator in charge, Reach, and we had a really good drawing of people that are involved with it. Very pleased, and really it came back to there are so many new people, new members to this, new coordinator to this program, that we almost had like a Clay County Collaborative 101, and it was very educational, very, very engaging, and I think we're headed off to a good path. Right now we'll be reviewing what it actually are all the guidelines and principles and mission of what the collaborative is, and then on to reviewing the bylaws. And at the same time, of course, by in the next month, we'll be starting to send out our applications for this year's grants. And we want to keep those all in motion on a very progressive and orderly path. So our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 5th, and we'll have more news at that time as this advances forward. Thursday was my monthly meeting for children's mental health. Again, very well attended. I'm just really impressed how this group comes together with providers. And what we did was annually the LAC has provided two surveys. One goes out to consumers as to how they feel about the work that providers are doing, the accessibility for consumers to find the care that they need, and the direction. And then the other one is to the providers, a survey to the providers, how they feel the referral systems, and also information shared between the providers. We had at this meeting in particular seven different providers and plus schools that were in attendance. So anyway, we pulled this survey all together in May on Mental Health Month. That's when typically the children's mental health group comes forward and meets our commission, and they'll give the details of that survey and then future recommendations for LOC as we move forward to make the best program we make available to our citizens of Clay County. On Friday the 7th, I had a couple of team meetings along with our PRTF group. We met with Representative Keeler. Part of that was Commissioner Mojai and Steve Summers from Solutions, all talking in and collectively looking forward to our next steps as we work through legislature. Also, there was a follow-up meeting with an association that works with mental health. It's an association called Aspire, and they told about the work they did, and certainly it's good to know that there's other coalitions out there that could help us if needed. And then last night I was at the Buffalo Red River Watershed District Board meeting for their monthly meeting. The resolution that we just passed regarding our resolution of support for legislative appropriation for the $60 million or $60.4 million that we just approved as a county board. This one was more specific for the Buffalo Red, and really the only difference in the verbiage for the most part was just it broke it down a little bit more about the fact that it included the buyouts of the land, and then also the fact that it includes $16.6 million for the Wolverton project and $6.5 for the Georgetown levy. So that unanimously passed, and will be coming back to us again to work along with our work down in St. Paul and to be part of the jacketing of the bill as it moves through. And with that, that's my report.
All right, thank you, Paul. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week I attended the Highway Tracking Committee meeting, as been reported on by the actions of this board earlier, and the work session later on in the afternoon. Gratitude to staff for getting all of those components together as we decipher what makes the most sense for our communities. On Friday, I attended a flood mitigation legislative planning session with the Chamber of Commerce and partners from the City of Moorhead in anticipation of our visits to the Capitol yesterday. After that meeting, I attended the non-secure juvenile detention PRTF strategizing meeting with our work group and Representative Keeler. I think really great feedback as always, these things tend to move quite quickly once we enter legislative session, so making sure that we're all on the same page as we work forward makes the most sense. We'll meet again this Wednesday just to hash out some of the components. Yesterday, as noted, I attended the day in St. Paul legislative meetings highlighted by the chair and co-chairs of the Capital Investment Committee meetings. Certainly having the City of Moorhead representatives from the Diversion Authority in Clay County present really amplifies our voices there. Part of the main components as we worked with Moorhead's lobbyist and the Chamber's lobbyist is making sure that we're on track for getting the bill language back from the revisor's office. Now that the House is in full session, they're quite backlogged, but hopeful that we're not too far away from Senator Kupek getting that language. Representative Joy will be the one carrying the language for the bill, and Representative Keeler will be signing on. So really great supportive from those folks around those tables. I think it is imperative, as I said earlier, to make sure that we have both Governor Armstrong and Governor Walz part of the dialogue together, but continue to have really great conversations down there. On the way home, I tuned in to hear Commissioner Krabenoff at the Watershed District asking for that resolution of support. I appreciate his willingness to do so and their support on that. And did hang on for the rest of the meeting. They did have a fairly good feedback, a lot of which revolved around their Citizens Advisory Committee that has, over the last few years, struggled for attendance, basically because they've been scheduling it when county boards were meeting, so it was kind of hard for all of us to attend that. And then two, it seems like they were always scheduling it over the spring breaks of the area schools, which also is difficult for folks to get out to that meeting. So I know they did have a meeting or insight on how they could best schedule that and outreach for that, and then recruit new members for that. And I think that concludes my reports.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bear?
Thank you. Last week after county board, I went and toured the Clay County Correctional Facility with Sheriff. I want to thank Sheriff Empting and the staff for taking me through that facility. Then on Wednesday, we had a building committee meeting, and we discussed the capital improvement plan and advised staff to come up with a plan to determine the project cost on a joint highway building roof replacement. That we share that building with MnDOT and Moorhead Highway Department. It'll cost about $500 to $600 for the county share to hire an architect to determine the cost of the project. We also discussed the family service fit-up projects for suites 401 and 201. The tenant's lease is up July 1st and decide not to renew this lease. Joe will have more on this project once we get closer to that date. And we also talked about the Justice Center, aka the courthouse. The state probation wants to move back into the Justice Center. We talked about options where we might find room for them to move into. There could be room on the first floor, but it might be tight, but it would be a start. We also talked about court security, and Joe was gonna come up with some numbers for card access doors. Then after the building committee, I went over with, Paul was there, with the Clay County Collaborative Governments Board, which Paul reported on. I'm an alternate to that committee, and Paul did a very good job reporting to that. And then yesterday, we had a meeting about county property. It wasn't a committee meeting, but we had myself, the planning director, the sheriff's department, and the group. If you remember, December 17th, they were here to talk about Bluff Run, the Bluff Run group for a single-track motorbike track. And we discussed options on property in the county and solutions, and they came away with not wanting that piece that they originally were talking about putting that on. So now Matt Jacobson is working on finding them another spot, if it's in the county, or getting them in touch with landowners where it might fit. Yesterday. So that is all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, we also, we've had some discussion already on February 4th about the work group that we had here. I don't need to add any more to that. That same day, we had a Highway Tracking Committee meeting that Commissioner Moser reported on. I just want to touch on a couple of other things. Justin has requested to purchase a drone to help with inspections of bridges. That's would be about a $25,000 cost to provide that drone, and I think he's working on a way to incorporate that within his budget. So I think that's going to be coming before the full board for consideration. He also reported that there's 2 motor graders now where the transmissions have gone out, and the warranty was up on them last year, and so the repair to each of those is about $60,000 each. He's working with vendors on getting quotes and trade-in numbers, so we'll no doubt be looking at that in the near future. Houston Engineering is working on the scope and a fee to regarding the CASA 26 road raise, and that is again in cooperation with and being reimbursed by the Diversion Authority. That's the 26 that goes just right along Cragness there. And then he did report that through the D4 ATP, we received $1.1 million in 2029 for the mill and overlay of CASA 10. Next year, he has a goal to get 60% funding, federal funding. So we'd be looking at another $1.6 million in 2030 for advanced construction. That's a significant road with an awful lot of traffic on it. So Dave's been working hard on obtaining funding on that, and he's doing a good job so far. And then there's anticipated $1.1 million. Oh, oh, did I say? I'm Justin. Oh boy. Okay. And then anticipating $1.1 million in 2027 for CASA 3 through the TMA, and CASA 3 is just right north of 11th Street. And he talked about the 15th Avenue corridor study. The final report has been approved. Commissioner Mojo and I are going to be attending an information meeting on that tomorrow morning to find out some of the issues going on there. And that kind of might coincide with what I talked about with future considerations on things we might want to be dealing with highway tracking in terms of the 5-year plan with that whole Highway 10 corridor issue. So we'll keep working on that. Then we had the building committee meeting on February 5th. Commissioner Bear gave a good outline of that in terms of the 4th floor and 2nd floor, basically remodel or refit. It's still within the plan to have that completed in 2025. So in case there's some folks in the Family Service Center wondering, those 2 projects are still slated to be done sometime this year, and it's going to have to be probably after the 1st of July. A lot of other things were also discussed. I think Commissioner Baird outlined that fairly well for now on what was done there. On Thursday, the February 6th, we did have a special meeting of the Diversion Authority, which Commissioner Ebinger reported on, and that was all that was really on the agenda was the consulting agreement contract with Jody Smith, and I was very strongly in supportive of that. Primarily what she's going to continue to work on is some of the lands discussions that we have right now that are, some of them are in court proceedings, and she's been very involved with that, and her information and knowledge on previous actions are really important. And besides that, I think she has a good relationship working with all of these landowners, not, you know, they don't necessarily like the whole concept of it, but at least they have confidence in Jody and what she brings forward to both the MCC JPA and the Cass County Joint Water Resource Boards for consideration. I believe that concludes my report, other than the fact that last night I had the opportunity to stop into the Mangoes, who were newly here in Moorhead, and I just want to publicly thank them for moving to Moorhead and Clay County. It's a business, and I'll tell you what, the place was packed, and the food was good, the service was good, and the band was good. So it was a nice night, and I'm thankful that they chose Moorhead and Clay County for their new home. So welcome to Mangoes. All right, Darren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of the things have already been covered, so I'll try not to take too much time. I was also a part of the work session for the tobacco ordinance on February 4th. February 5th, we had a county management committee meeting, and also on the 5th, the land development ordinance discussion with the department head. So after the management meeting, Matt Jacobson got some of the department heads that may have some part in the land development ordinance together, and we kind of went through that, and he gave us a good update on that. On the 5th, I also attended the building committee meeting, going over the 10-year plan. Also on the 5th, I had some training with the civic forums. It's Civic Optimize. It's what Mark talked about today, where we're making all of our forms into one platform. So I had some training on that, on how to do that. On the 6th, I met with Kimberly for about an hour to go over their recorders, the state recorders' legislative priorities and proposals to the state. I do have a copy of that I can certainly send out to the board, just so you kind of know what the recorders of the state are looking at changing as far as legislation goes. Also on the 6th, I had Pro Talent Training, which is our continuation of the onboarding and recruiting module for UKG. Hopefully we'll have that done and ready to go by the end of February, maybe the beginning of March, depending on how the training goes. Also on the 6th, I attended a dog encounter training, which was very good. It was kind of geared towards like people that go out, and social workers, planning and zoning, assessors, go out and maybe encounter mean dogs, dog bites, that type of thing. So it was a pretty good lesson. On the 7th, I also met with Kirsten Anderson from Aspire, and I think Commissioner Krebinoff was there as well. He handled that. And then yesterday, I also sat in on the Bluff Motorcycle Club and the usage of the demo landfill area. Tomorrow afternoon, I am driving to Minneapolis for a MPELRA conference. That's only a one-day conference. It's on Thursday, and then I'll be driving back Thursday night. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Darren. Brian, do you have anything for us today? Jackie?
Just a reminder that on Monday we are closed for President's Day, so county buildings will be closed. Did you already mention that? Okay.
It's because I love working here. I'm going to work Monday, if that's okay.
Will you have fun?
I'll be the only one.
All right, anything else? We are adjourned.